are listening to the Ropes N Riffs podcast with your host, John Kiernan.
You know the man as PJ Black. You've known him as Justin Gabriel. You've known him as Dr. Black, the man of many names and many skills. But I'm going to call him my brother today. I'm so happy to have the one and only PJ Black here to have a conversation with us. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Friday, my favorite day of the week. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. It's funny, too, us being about wrestling and music and all that. I heard a John 5 interview recently where I think it was from the Hard Rock Cafe. They were giving all these different legendary guitars. And one of them, he goes, "Oh, this was a Friday guitar." And you're just like, what is a Friday guitar? And he's just like, that was one right before the weekend where it was like they were getting things done real quickly. They're like, usually you want to get a Wednesday guitar. It is a Friday guitar. You are somebody who has influenced so many. You're an innovator in so many ways. And we're really going to have a conversation about different things that you've done. But really, our focus today is talking about the music side of what you've done, from all the different entrance themes that you've had all around the globe, all different promotions. And, you know, you've had a fair few of them, from the independents to being in the Nexus in WWE to You Will Believe in Me to actually one that I didn't know or think of before time, which was Obtuse. And I'm going to start there because it was such a sticker shock for me doing a bit of that research too. So I know that was your TNA theme that you used, Obtuse, but I had no idea that it was from Jeff Hardy's band.
Yeah, actually, it was. I used it in TNA, but it was actually the Global Force stint I did. I was one of Jeff's top guys, I guess, if you say so. You know, like he gave me a lot of leeway and a lot of stuff. So obviously, one of the first things I always do is get music to fit the character. And because Jeff Jarrett is good friends with Jeff Hardy, so he let us use that song, which is freaking awesome. Yeah, what a tune that was. And then there was only like a very short era in my wrestling career. You know, it was like the Global Force, and then we did the little TNA invasion angle, and it didn't last very long. I hope one day a lot of that stuff that we filmed would come to surface, because we filmed so many great shows for Global Force that you know, only the fans in attendance got to see. We created some real magic. But yeah, that's where that theme comes from. And I was very surprised too, because Jeff Jarrett was like, "Hey, do you mind if I do the track for you?" You know, like usually, like we'll get into this later. Me and you work together on my current track, and
Yeah.
Some of my WWE stuff too. But Jeff was like, "Hey, do you mind if I just do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And at first I didn't really care. And then he said, "Well, Jeff Hardy's going to do it." And I was like, "All right, whatever it is, I'm cool. I don't even have to hear it." And I think I heard it the first time for my entrance into the ring. That was the first time I heard it. And I was like, okay. I like all kinds of music, not really my style, but I can make this work.
And with that, too, you kind of dropped a little bit that it was a Jeff Jarrett thing, and then obviously Jeff, he released it on that Peroxygen album, and I think that's how you say it. But was that a song that came from his...
I still have no idea how you say that.
That's Jeff Hardy for you. He just puts it out there, and he's like, yeah, however you pronounce it is how it's going to be pronounced for that moment. Was that a track that was made specifically for you and then put on his record? Or did he put it on his record and then Jeff Jarrett was like, "Hey, I think I have a track that would work really well for your presentation"?
See, I don't know. Like the way Jeff pitched it to me is like that was made for me, and it came out so well that he was gonna put it on the album. And but who knows? You know, it's wrestling, so we blur those lines. So who really knows?
It's so funny, too, because if you think of that album, and I don't know how much you've taken a dive into that record, but also Obsolete comes from there, which is what he was using afterwards as Broken Jeff Hardy and the Broken Universe stuff. So it's cool to see that he was able to put those creative outlets and make them work not just for him releasing music, but also be able to parlay that into the Broken Universe, into a theme for you, and just really make all that happen. And you said that you're such a fan of different styles. I remember that when we worked on You Will Believe in Me with you, me, It Lives, It Breathes, Michael Tarver, all these guys, Monster Tarver as he goes by now, there were so many references that you sent over, and myself as well. I love lots of different styles of music, but I loved how it was like, take Korn and Virus Syndicate and marry them, and let's go into that. You were actually my first into Virus Syndicate, and now I can't get enough of them. They're so cool.
I know, very, very unique. You know, I lived in London for a long time, so that type of music, what is it's like? It's not like drum and bass. What do they call that genre? It's like
Yeah, like dubstep kind of stuff. Yeah.
it's like dubsteppy, and I was looking for something dubsteppy. I kind of knew what I wanted. I knew, I don't know much about music, right? But I remember coming to you and also to Tarver. I gave him a bunch of lines, and I also told him the beat what to hit. I was like, tit, 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 tit. That's what I needed. That's, you know, I wish I can write music sometimes because I have these ideas in my head, but I wouldn't know how to like write it or put it into practice. But yeah, I was doing a lot of research, and I actually just while I was thinking of something, I came up with discovered that band too. I never knew about them before that.
Yeah, it's a really big hodgepodge of styles in that theme, but they work so well together. And you know, for me, when we were writing it, it was the first time that I'd gotten the opportunity to write something in more of a dubsteppy style. So it was definitely something for me that was like, oh, this is really cool. And, you know, you've had some of those influences in earlier themes that you've had also, some more of the electronic elements, even going back into the theme that you used in WWE post-Nexus, you had a lot of that. And I remember that when we were talking, you wanted to reference a little bit of not necessarily the music that you used in WWE, but that style too. So let's kind of start a little bit in that realm. So when you're in WWE, you have the theme that you guys have with the Nexus, right? You're coming in, then the Nexus disbands, does everything they do, and then you're continuing to ply your trade within WWE. Now it comes the time for you to have your own entrance theme and go your own way. So the theme that you had, let me find the name of it real quick. It is Fear Nothing. The theme that you had in WWE was Fear Nothing, which is also a banger track in and of itself. So for you going into working with them, how much input and how much influence did you have with Fear Nothing compared to the track that they gave you?
Wow. So initially they gave me a track. I don't even know what it was. I can't remember. But after the Nexus, I was still kind of trying to find myself. Where is this character gonna go? You know, where do I fit in? Am I baby face? Am I heel? Am I the high flyer? Am I the high octane guy? Whatever it was. And, you know, I always loved electronic music ever since I was little. You know, like one of my first ever entrance tracks when I broke into the business in 1995 was actually Prodigy, Firestarter. Yep. So that was the kind of theme. I was looking for something like that, like kind of like industrially, techno-y, you know, also like, I guess what old school Marilyn Manson, like, I like alternative-y, but like, I don't even know what you call those genres. But anyway, so I was looking for something like that. And I remember I was talking to a bunch of guys and I was like, yo, how can I get my own music? How can I get my own music? And we were talking about this earlier today. The bigger the company is, the longer it takes, right? Because you got to go all the way up to levels. So yeah. I never made it to, you know, the guy who's done most of the themes. I don't know if he still works there, Jim Johnson. I mean,
but Jim Johnston was the guy. Yeah.
Everybody knows who he is, right? So at the time, they hired another group. I forget who it was. You'll probably see it on the Fear Nothing track. But they were kind of trying to take some work away from Jim. So I think I was probably the second or third person to talk to them. I remember going into the truck and I was just like, hey, I'm going to need my own music. This is what I want. And we went back and forth. I sent them some samples, some ideas, and we went back and forth and they came up with that track. And I was like, all right, that's close enough. I think the inspiration for that track was, remember Korn did that song with Skrillex. It was like a dubsteppy metal song. That's exactly what I wanted. And I think they did a fairly decent job at that. I would have changed the intro a little bit. They had that like lightning bolts and the way I had it was very different initially, but I mean, I had a lot of say in it, but I didn't have the final say in it. So that's what we came up with. But I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and it establishes, I think, a good pace for you, right? And that's one thing that an entrance theme should always do, is it should set the mood before you even hit the ring, but it's also got to be something that energizes you before you get to the ring, too. You got to believe it. You got to think that the track is good, but you got to have it internally, too. And being able to work with, if it's the people that came right after Johnson, we're talking about CFOs, I think they did a really great job with a lot of themes coming up, that theme included. And I think it was such a departure from a lot of the themes that Jim Johnston had done before. Jim Johnston is a legend in the industry, obviously, but I think when WWE started to go in this different direction, brought in CFOs, there were a lot of tracks that were bangers, including that one. And, being able to hear that Korn Skrillex track was such an influence, it's important to note that that was also an influence for the track that we worked on, You'll Believe in Me. So it's cool to see that there's that through line from when you finally had like that really strong say in WWE all the way through to what you're doing now. Now, obviously, you've been going by the Darewolf for years, but Dr. Black is something that was a big piece of when we would have our conversations about your theme, saying, hey, this is the character I'm going with. And I won't delve too much information because, again, magician never reveals his secrets, and I'm absolutely not going to reveal yours. But when you were in WWE, were there any conversations about bringing the Dr. Black idea into that WWE environment? Or was that once you left WWE, you were like, okay, cool, this is now the brainchild. This is where we're going to have all that lore going forward?
Yeah, no, that only came about after WWE. I was kind of still trying to find my way. The Darewolf character actually came up in 2012. Remember the Twilight movies were really big, right? So the fans started calling me Cape Town Werewolf. So I kind of like ran with that, and I thought that was kind of cool. But I was trying to do this daredevil character, that's when I got into skydiving and all this crazy extreme sports, and I was trying to do like an evil Knievel character. So that's how I came up with that name. Actually, I just took daredevil and werewolf, and I was like Darewolf. So and then I was trying some. That's why the music too is kind of like mashup-y, right? Good, because it's like not metal, but it's not dubstep. It's like a little bit of everything. Someone said this once to me. It says, PJ, you're a little bit fast for mass appeal, and I never understood what that meant. And it's like like my style is very, very different. I don't connect to a lot of people, but the people that I do connect with, it's like, oh yeah, I get this guy. It's just really weird. Like when people call me weird, I take that as a massive compliment. David Otunga told me that the other day. He's like, man, you're like one of the weirdest dudes I've ever met. I was like, oh, thank you. I was like, I took that as such a massive compliment.
It's so cool to be able to have that uniqueness to you, though, too. And, it's one of those things where the moveset that you have, the music that you have, all these different things that make you, you. It's the entire package of PJ Black. And like you said, there's no greater compliment than being told in so many words that you're as uniquely you and even weird as it may be. But there's so much that goes into that. And you took the Darewolf character and eventually evolved it into, as we hear in You'll Believe in Me, some of the Dr. Black elements. To as much as you want to espouse about that, tell us a little bit about the thought from continuing to use the Darewolf idea, but also starting to have a bit more of that Dr. Black element in it. Because the presentation between WWE and even in Lucha Underground, all the way into TNA and into what you're doing now, there have been a lot of different shifts in the visuals and in the music. So walk us through a little bit on taking the Darewolf into this Dr. Black style presentation and character too.
Yeah, so in WWE you have a lot of input, but if you're not one of the top guys, you don't have creative control, if you will. So when I left there, for the first time, I had creative control. So I was like, wow, like who is PJ Black? What is his character? And like in wrestling, you have to evolve. You have to keep adapting with the time. So I was like, let me try to do something new. And I had a near-death experience from base jumping in 2014 or 15. And then I broke both my legs again twice. So I had, I was on this spiritual journey, if you will, like this
Sure.
Awakening journey, I guess, whatever. So, I studied with a bunch of shaman, and I have a bunch of shaman friends, and I was like, cool, maybe I can turn this into a character. That's where the doctor comes from. It's more like black, I wouldn't say black magic, but you know what a shaman is, like medicine, plant medicines and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, maybe I can incorporate this into a character. I don't know if people understand it, or maybe, it's wrestling. Think about this. Like we like wrestling for the characters, like it's like we're like superheroes. We don't want to see the normal guy, Jim John, fight Billy Woo. Like, that's fun too. But for me, it's like watching a Marvel movie. You want a character. So I was like, cool. So I was deep into the spiritual world stuff, like growing my own magic mushrooms and making potions and all that stuff. And I was like, cool, maybe I can turn this into a character. So I got some inspiration. I took from Doctor Strange, Kraven the Hunter, and who is the other character? And I basically just blended those characters together, and I try to come up with something, and that's still a work in progress. I still haven't put out to the wrestling fans what the character really should be. It's still a work in progress, but as you can see, I look different every single time, and I thought that would be fun because Doctor Strange, he jumps timelines. So that'd be cool if I can just look different every single time, like kind of look like PJ Black, kind of look like the Darewolf, but just be, because the idea is that he jumps timelines, so I called people by their different names. Like I did in FCW, I did a little storyline with Seth Rollins, and calling him Tyler Black in the promo, and calling people by their indie names and the other names. So people think okay, wow, this guy's just really crazy, but he's really just for lack of a better term, time traveler. He jumps timelines, and that's where I wanted to go, and because there's so much you can do, there's so much fun you can have. Imagine the vignettes we can shoot and all that stuff. I filmed some really cool stuff that I've never really put out. It just never made it onto TV or anything like that. But now with social media, I was thinking maybe in the next couple of months, maybe I should put that stuff out, because we spend so much time on that. Just the track that we created. Remember, I was trying to explain to you what I want, where this character is going to go, and we put so much time and effort into that. And I still thank you so much for that, man. You did a fantastic job in that, and now I just hope that I can take the next step, the music and the character, and bring that to life. I was trying really hard to get signed in one of the TV companies, but I realized, I was like, wow, even if you're on the indies, you can do this stuff, because we have social media now, and you have YouTube, and you can bring any character to life that you really want. So I have no excuses on that.
That's what I was going to say, is not that you don't have any excuses, but what I was going to echo with what you're saying is you are in that time period now where being a professional wrestler gives you so many different outlets that you can bring to the table, even if you're on TV or if you're just leveraging social media. We've seen that ever since the Broken Universe and things like that and the cinematic stuff. And, you're seeing everything that Matt Cardona has done over the years. It really goes to show that the limitations are only of the creativity, of which you have loads of creativity, as we see. And, as you continue to explore the Dr. Black character and release even more about that, the song reflects those different things too. But yeah, being a wrestler and being in the industry in 2024, 2025 that we're going into, it has such a unique opportunity to bring about all of these different ways for you to bring new characters to life. So even when you're talking about the potions and the jumping timelines, it's funny. If you would have thought 15 years ago, maybe it would have been a bit oblong or a bit obtuse. But now if you think about where we are now, you're seeing people do things like that every day on the independents, online, and even on TV. Yeah.
Yeah, and my good friend, rest his soul, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham was a really good friend of mine, and he was actually helping me and work on this character, because the Dr. Black character is very similar to what he was doing. Not exactly, but touching on the esoteric, however you pronounce that side of things, and we came up with some really cool ideas, and oh man, I miss that guy so much. He knew exactly what I wanted. Was I explaining this character to him, he was like, yeah, I get it. This is what we're gonna do. What a creative genius he was too. I wish we could have some of the stuff that we wanted to do together. I wish we could have done that. We didn't have the time for that. That's why like these days, I don't wait for anything anymore, right? Because anything can happen. Like I've lost so many friends over the last few years. I'm like, now when I have an idea, I'm like, let's just go for it. I remember that's how this song came about too. I mean, I was bugging you forever. I was like, come on, we got to get this done, and it took us so long. I don't know. You're a musician. I don't know how long that process usually takes, but I feel like this took forever. This took like over a year, didn't it?
It did, and I think there were a couple lulls in there where it was like, hey, there were communication things or maybe drops and whatnot. But yeah, it depends on the song, and it really depends on the talent. It depends on a lot of different factors. And for us, I think we always want it done right now. And there's a lot of times where it needs to be done right now. I usually say that, kind of echoing what Mikey Ruckus has said, the quickest theme he's ever had to turn around was in an hour. Very similar here. There was a theme I had to do for TV, which was in 30 minutes. It was crazy. We'll talk about that at some point. But, it to me is always a matter of how does the vision come out at the end? And, even though it took a while, even though it took us that bit of time to get there, we still got there. And that's, I think, the ultimate point. And you mentioned Bray Wyatt also. You mentioned how much of an impact he had on you because you guys were close. If you're talking about somebody who really understands what you're looking to do and understands how you can leverage all these different things and, thinking outside of the box for the characters, you don't have to look any further than Bray Wyatt for that, obviously.
Yeah, wow, I miss that guy every day, man. Wow. He was when I moved to the United States, he was one of my first friends, like all my family's still back in South Africa. So when I came to the US, that was probably the best 10 months of my life when I was in developmental, because I got paid to just play with my friends every day, go to the gym, go to the show. Like, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a phone back then. I didn't have bills to pay. I didn't have anything. I was just wrestling every day, and me and Wyndham and his brother became really close. Me and the Usos, we all got to FCW at the same time. So, I not having a family here, those are the guys that invited me for Christmas and Thanksgiving because I didn't have anywhere to go, so they became like my family. They were my brothers. And wow, such a creative mind. I knew from day one too. At Wyndham and both the Usos, they got there and they come from a football background. Obviously, they're second generation wrestlers, but they never trained. Like they literally, I watched them take their first bumps, hit the ropes for the first time, and the Fire Twos within a week they were like better than anybody I've ever wrestled in South Africa. It was insane. And Wyndham was the same. Wyndham took it a little bit, but he always had that other side where he was a character and he knew how to bring characters to life, and his promos were just so good, and every week he'd try something different. Back in the FCW days, we used to have promo class with Dusty Rhodes. Another genius, another person I've learned so much from, and he encouraged that. He forced us. He goes, okay, PJ, next week you're gonna come in as 80s pop star and cut a promo on Wyndham. Like he challenged us to do those things, and a lot of those things came out, and it's so cool to see Bray Wyatt bring that character to life, because that was an idea he had ages ago, and it made me think too. I was like, wow, all these little character ideas, or even like moves or anything, all these ideas that I used to have, I was like, just bring them back and incorporate them, just like mash it all together. And that's what's fun about wrestling, right? It's a soap opera. We should play. My dad used to call it a stuntman's ballet. And I think about that a lot often. I was like, wow, it really is. Wrestling is a stuntman's ballet. We're like rock star ballet dancers.
Yeah, totally. And it's cool to hear the mention of being able to take things from different points and bring them in at different points. There's a lot of YouTube channels and wrestlers that I talk to and things that I watch. And I think one of the statements that I always hear, that I always agree with, is people are interesting. Just a character itself is okay, but a person is interesting. And when you take all of the lineage, whether it be bad things that happen to that person or character, good things that have happened to that character or whatnot, and you use a lot of that historical context to help inform the character and the story, it makes it seem like this one giant, cohesive brand or one cohesive story that you can follow through promotions, through one promotion, through the entire life cycle of somebody. And you bring that up with Bray Wyatt, and you can tie that to a lot of what you've done and what you're planning too with the Dr. Black character. And I'm sure that as that becomes even more fleshed out, when people look back on the theme, they're like, oh yeah, like there's that, there's this little thing, okay, cool, here are these little nuggets that were planted all through time. And with Bray, you talk about him, and unfortunately, I never got the chance to meet him, but he was and still is such a massive influence on me. Even I post this on social media all the time. If you look at the pants that I used to perform, I basically went to my designer and said, "Can you make these?" And they were the black version of the bird pants that he had. He always had like the white ones with the birds. I was like, there was one time where I think he gave his sister Abigail to Brock Lesnar, and that was the one time he wore like the black with the white coming up it. I'm like, that. So, like, every time I go on stage, I have those pants on, and I'm just like, man, there was one time where I wish I could have gone to the Firefly Funhouse and said, hi, you regret those things. I would have just told him, like, all of that, too. And I hope that, he may have seen that. But you take something like that and that vision, that creativity, and you add it to what you're doing, and you're just like, where can I take this Dr. Black character? And there's still so many legs to it. Like I said, I'm not going to go in deep with it, but from the conversations that we've had, because this is years of conversations, ladies and gentlemen, years of PJ Black coming in and being like, oh, well, this is what we can do here. When this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just really cool, because every now and again, you'll see it peek its head up. But in its final form, which will probably never be final, but if it's in its final form, I can't wait for people to see what the full Dr. Black vision is.
Oh yeah, me too. I just hope I can do my thoughts justice. I hope I can bring that to life. Like I have so many ideas for it, and like I said, I've filmed so many things, and like now I've been like editing those videos. I have so much content, putting them together, and it kind of fits the character because like now I'm like look older and gray. And at one stage I had the dreadlocks, and then I had the spike hair, and it kind of works well because it just. If I edit them all together, it just looks like I'm jumping timelines. It just looks like I'm a different person, different character, but it works, and it works for this character, which is awesome, And like, if this was a couple of years ago, or the character was something completely different, it probably wouldn't have worked out so well because it's like, wow, you look so different. Like there you look tan, there you have long hair, there you have short hair. But for this character, it actually works. So the more crazy and the more different outfits and things I have and the more different places I go to, the more it works. So I'm just building up content for that one day that I'm just gonna unleash it into the wrestling universe.
Now, talking about doing things as PJ Black and talking about doing things with TV in mind or independence in mind, when you're going to a promotion and you have this character and this entire brand, and like you said, you're putting all these assets together, do you think that when you go to TV and you're a wrestler, that they appreciate the fact that you already have all this content created that they can leverage and take from? Or do you think there's more of an air of, okay, cool, we kind of understand what you do, so now we're going to go ahead and take that in the direction that we see fit?
It really depends on who you are and who you're talking to, right? Like I said, if you're like a Bray Wyatt and you go to like the head of creative, you go to Hunter and be like, hey, this is the idea I have, and then they'll be like, all right, cool, we'll work with our writers or our team and we can bring it to life. It depends, like I said, how high up you are, the more creative control you have. And when you just come in and they don't know who you are and you're like, hey, this is the idea I have, they'll be like, I don't know. Like I spoke to Hunter, Triple H, probably like 2 months ago, and I showed him some of the stuff I filmed, and he was just like, he's like, I don't know if anybody's gonna get this. I'm like, exactly, that's the thing. The character needs to spark more questions than answers. You want people to be like, remember those 20, 30-second vignettes that they used to play in between the commercial breaks and Raw? I picture this vignette coming up and people go, what the hell was that? I want to see more. I want to find out more. Like what, it needs to spark more questions than answers. He was like, well, you got to tone it down a lot. And I was like, well, that's a good start because, like Dusty Rhodes used to say this all the time. You can always ask someone to pull it back, be way over the top, bring it back. But it's hard to get someone to be like, hey, do more, show me another side, show me another layer. So I think it's good, and he likes to look and everything. But we haven't spoken since.
Well, now with like social media too, you have the ability, like let's say that idea does get taken to WWE. You have the idea to flesh it out using social media to different elements. See, you see that with people like Karrion Kross, you saw that with Bray, you see that with a lot of different talents across the wrestling ecosystem where they have what's on TV, the kind of like bullet points, the what you need to know to make everything work, and then you can do the filler in and inform on all the different channels that you have too.
Yeah, and remember, like, wrestling also evolves. We go through these eras. We had the Attitude Era, and, we had that kind of like reality era, where everyone had a first and last name. And I feel like we're evolving yet again. We're in this era where people want to see the characters. That's why Bray Wyatt worked, like, if he pitched that character like 5 years before he was on TV, it would have never worked, because they would be like, nah, this is not what we're going for. So it's cool to see that wrestling's going that way again, where these fun, over the top characters we can bring that to life again. And it's cool to see that they're open to all that stuff too. That's why I've been putting some a lot of effort into this, into showing there's something really weird, because I want them to look at it and be like, what the hell? Let's do something.
Now, there's also a theme that I don't think it's talked about quite as much because, it was a Lucha Underground theme called Anti-Joy. And when you listen to that one, I think that one, you would agree, is probably a far departure from any of the themes that you've probably had over the years. But also, the PJ Black character at that time was a bit of a departure from what we knew before and what we would know to come now. So, Lucha Underground also is a very different beast. They're starting to do things with MLW where they have little pepperings of it in. But how was it in Lucha Underground when they came to you with this theme to say, okay, cool, this is the one you're going to use? Because that also wasn't really like a live promotion all the time. It was one of these things where it was 100% shot for TV. So, in my head, sometimes I watch Lucha Underground and I watch the themes that people come out to, and sometimes I'm just like, they could probably come out to something different live, and then all of a sudden they superimpose something in post.
But that's exactly what happened. So, like,
Oh,
sometimes we didn't even have music. A lot of the storylines too, like, we didn't even know what the storyline was because it was shot so out of place. It was shot like a TV show. That's the thing. Like, it wasn't a wrestling promotion. It was a TV show. This happened to be about lucha libre. It was fantastic. That was a great time in my life too. Like, a lot of that stuff, like the theme. I didn't even know what the theme was until the show came out. Sometimes I didn't even know the storyline until the show came out. It was very unique and it was very interesting. So when that started, I remember them giving me a call, and I just left WWE at the time, and I've never worked the independents in the United States. So I was really excited to get out there and just work as many indies as possible. So I declined the offer for the first season initially, and I told him, I was like, yo, I just want to be a free agent for a little while. I just want to work the independents. Plus, I've never heard of Lucha Underground. I didn't understand the concept at the time, because I told him to give me a call back a year later. I remember 1st of October, a year later, they called me back, right? And I've already seen a couple of episodes of the first season, and I was like, what the hell? How did I say no to this? But they called me back, and before he even said anything, I said, I'm in. He goes, don't you want to hear the pitch? I have this great character that I want you to play. And I was like, I don't care what it is. I'm in, right? So we went back and forth, and there was like 2 or 3 characters that they want me to play. And we went back and forth. Time ran out. The next thing we know, all those characters just got scrapped, and they were like, just be PJ Black for the first week. We'll figure it out. Because remember they had like Vampiros bringing people back to life, and people were dying. So there's like, just be PJ Black for now, and then we'll right into the storyline where you come back as this character. That never happened, which I'm really stoked, because I got to be PJ Black on the show. But also I didn't have a character or anything, so I was just like, they're like, who are you? And I was like, well, I'm kind of like this daredevil, I guess. I don't know. And DJ, the head writer, he was like, I saw you like motorcycles, you ride motorcycles. We're going to shoot this vignette. Do you have any ideas? And I was like, not really. That's you guys' job. But I can tell you what the character kind of is like. And I don't know if you saw that vignette when I debuted on. It was fantastic. We shot that all in one day. I did all those motorcycle stunts. That was all me. The guy that did the choreography, he used to work with on a lot of Bruce Lee films, so it was really good. We kept it really simple. It was kind of like a, it was kind of like a biker dude, but like, a street guy. It was just there. It was just a fear nothing was the slogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, what an interesting time. Like, what an interesting concept that was.
And I mean, in that time, too, you also got to work with, John Morrison, Johnny Mundo at the time, Taya Valkyrie, and all those people, too, which was really cool to, see there. Because, again, that's a real-life relationship that you have. So much so where when we came out with You Will Believe in Me, this was probably one of my first or second themes that I had done that made it to more of a TV kind of thing. And it was super cool to see. But I log into Instagram one day, and you're posted about it, we're posting about it, we're doing all the social media promotion, and all of a sudden there's a video of John Morrison listening to the theme with his dogs running all down the house. It was one of the craziest things, that I feel like it was such a full circle for like Lucha Underground all the way to here, and for people that knew about the relationship with you and John Morrison, Johnny Mundo at the time, Johnny TV, Johnny whatever, wherever he is, it was just cool to be able to see that tie-in too. And Lucha Underground, I always felt, was a very interesting promotion too, that got a lot of cult following love. And if it was still around today, I think, especially if it was around in today's climate, would really be able to thrive in a different way.
Yeah, it was fascinating, and like I said, obviously wrestling fans liked it because it was wrestling, but we attracted a completely different audience. We used to go do signings at like Comic Cons and go to all these like film festivals and stuff like that, and it's so cool. I was talking to people, they knew. I was at this festival once, I forget where it was, right? But the lady started talking to me, and she's like, "Oh, you play that character on that show." She's never watched wrestling ever in her life, but Lucha Underground made her a fan. So like a lot of these people in the movie industry and a lot of people who weren't wrestling fans, that show made them wrestling fans, and now they watch everything. And they didn't even know. Like, she was like, "Wow, have you ever heard of New Japan?" And I was like, "Yes." And she was so excited that she discovered that through Lucha Underground. So it was fascinating. Like, it was so cool. Like we had so many. I think there's one year we went to the San Diego Comic Con. That's the big one, right?
Yeah.
And it was just us, like all these like TV stars, and then the Lucha Underground cast. And, that was really cool. Like talking to people too, like who's never watched wrestling. It's such fascinating conversations, because we're used to it. Like, we talk to wrestling fans all the time. We know the
Right.
storylines and names. We know, like, but people. Imagine like a people in their 30s and 40s discovering wrestling for the first time. Like, wow, like it's like a little kid like discovering something new, right? So to me, that was fascinating, some fascinating conversations. And that's what I loved about Lucha Underground. Like, we made new wrestling fans.
And the thing is, like, it was with such a varied cast of people too. I think that a lot of people underestimate the Pentagons and the Phoenixes and all those people and the prominence that they got in Lucha Underground. Obviously, you and your work. And like you said, you did get a completely different vision of what wrestling could be. You had people teleporting, you had all these things. I always loved the fact of Lucha Underground being a promotion that was ran by like the biggest dirtbag in the world. Like, for me, one of the things, obviously championships are cool, but in like the first season it was like, oh, okay, cool, you guys are fighting for money. And then I forget what happened, but Johnny Mundo won and he just didn't give it to him or something like that. And then there was another point where it was like, the Gift of the Gods Championship was kind of like the Money in the Bank thing, right? Where he was like, okay, cool, you can cash it in whenever you want, but you need at least 1 week because I'm a promoter. I got to make more money off of this. It was always like, even though it wasn't based in like complete reality, there was that promoter who was still just like, I got to make a living doing this. And like the Dario Cueto character of me was always so on point with that. One of the big regrets I have in my life with Lucha Underground is I actually met Marty Elias in 2015 at a trade show in Anaheim called the NAMM Show. It's a trade show for musicians. And he was a representative for Orange Cabinets, which is an amp company that I even use to this day. And I forget how we got the conversation going, but he was like, oh, yeah, I work for Lucha Underground. He gave me a sticker or two. He signed it up, and he got me tickets to go to the show, which was, I guess the way that you guys had done it was like a day of shooting, right, a couple days of shooting for TV, and then you'd break it up into the hour-long episodes. And I was performing at the times that he had me go for the tickets. But I remember I was like, man, I so wish I could go. Ugh, to me, it broke my heart to not be able to go and then all of a sudden see later. But yeah, Lucha Underground will always be such a big part of my wrestling upbringing and wrestling fandom. But that theme was so different. Again, going back to that music. And it's interesting to note that exactly what we talked about was kind of what happened, right? You'd walk out, there'd be times where you didn't have music. And let's actually talk about that. You are in the wrestling industry, and maybe in the 70s and the 60s and the 80s, or in the 80s, different story, but like the 70s and the 60s, music isn't really playing a big part. A lot of people do walk out to silence, they walk out to the sound of the fans. But then you get into this time in the 80s and the 90s and into now, where theme music plays such a big role. If you don't have theme music to walk out to, what does that do to you? What does that do to you coming to the ring and the way that you ply your craft in that moment?
Yeah, it's really strange, because like you said, it sets the tone. Like when Randy's music hits, like that first note that hits, everybody knows who it is, right? You already like know what's about to happen. So it's really strange when there's no music. The first few episodes of Lucha Underground, because there was no sound in that. They had the microphone for the announcer, and then eventually later on we got that band that used to play live. We
Yeah.
used to get different bands too that play live, but they obviously, because of royalties and the rights and stuff like that, that's not the songs that you heard on TV. They like dubbed something completely different onto that. So it was a definitely an experience. But the fans made it what it was. Like the fans, like people. Like later, like season 2 and 3, it was impossible to get, because you have to get on this list to get. We couldn't charge for tickets because it's a TV show, right? It's like a live
Yeah.
studios, but people were fighting to get on there. People flew from all over the world. I remember there was this group of kids that flew in from Chicago every weekend just for those tapings, so
Oh, wow. Okay.
they could be there. Yeah, like you said, it created such a great cult following. And even now, I live in Los Angeles, I mean, because we were filming in Los Angeles back then. And I remember like leaving my motorcycle on set. So yeah, we used to Monday to Friday film the vignettes, and then on weekends film the live wrestling. And I remember leaving my motorcycle here, and I could just drive around that area. And this is where I lived. I still live till this day. I was just like, I sold my house in Miami, moved. I was just like, I'm gonna go live in LA. And I walk around. I'll give you an example. So that area at Boyle Heights, that's where the Puma character was from. That's actually where
Yeah.
we filmed. It's in the Arts District, right next to it, right? One of these little new gentrified areas. The other day, I wore a Lucha Underground shirt, and I went to an arcade. And the guy didn't recognize me, but he recognized the shirt. And we talked about wrestling forever. And he ended up giving me, at the arcades with like those new ones with the credit card, and you just
Yeah.
and you play. He gave me his card to play all day just because I was wearing a wrestling shirt. And this happens all the time, like people like walk around. Because I mean, I look very different to what I used to look like on TV. But like you see someone like. I was walking down the street the other day, and a guy had a NWA shirt on, and some random car just drove past and like just hit up the Too Sweet, and like and I held it. It's so cool, these people don't know each other at all, but like that's how wrestling brings us all together.
Yeah, wrestling is such a community. The fans, the people, the wrestlers, everybody. And I don't think that unless you're in it, even like lightly, you don't realize the community. I think we see a lot of things on social sometimes where a lot of trolling, but that's kind of everywhere nowadays, right? I think if you really take the community of wrestling, it is a family, it is a community. And I see that anytime I'm at a show. And I see that with people that I've never met before. I see that with people that have been longtime friends who I speak to all the time, or longtime friends that we haven't talked in years or in months. And then all of a sudden you meet up and it's like time's never passed. It's such a cool thing to see. And I think it's really special in the world of professional wrestling, because it crosses all these different genres, right? It's sports, it's entertainment, it's theater, it's agility, it's everything, right? And there's something for everybody in all of that. So let's talk a little bit more about You Believe in Me, and talk about kind of when you heard the final for the first time, when we said, hey, this is it, and we're all good to go on it, and it hits for the first time when you go to the ring. What's your first reaction to being able to walk out to You Will Believe in Me?
Well, it was awesome because we put so much work into that, and this was like you're an artist, so you understand that once you create something and you get to share it with other people, there's just like that feeling you get, right? It was awesome. I remember, I don't remember exactly where the show was, but I remember when I heard it for the first time in the arena. I think I sent you the clip. I was like, listen to
Yep.
this, listen to this. And it was such a good feeling, you know. It's awesome. Like it's a little art piece that we created. Like we created that thing, you know. Like we went
Yeah.
back and forth for I think it was over a year, right? We said, and then to just hear it come to life. I mean, I wasn't ready. I wanted to get the whole character set up first before I was going to launch it. But I was like, you know what? We worked so hard on this. The character will kind of evolve into the Dr. Black character, right? So when it came out first, I wasn't really Dr. Black yet. I was still kind of like Wolf, and like it was a slightly different character, but it kind of worked because he morphed and he evolved into that character, and it was just such a fulfilling feeling. I'm trying to think back now when it was. And then you know Ring of Honor started using it. I remember
Yeah.
we had to jump through all these loops and all these legal documents and papers. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I wrote this song. Like I created this with my friend John. Like we made it's not a song
Yeah.
that exists. Like and you
Yep.
try to explain that to them, and it's incredibly rewarding, and it still is to this day, man. I listen to that song all the time, and that just pumps me up, and that's what it should be, you know. And it's also it was the first time in my career where, you know, obviously I had some input in the WWE song and all those other songs, but this is the first time that I'm in creatively control of this whole thing, from the music to what I wear to the character and all the things. So it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, same. And I feel like when you're on my side of the aisle, where you're creating something with somebody and for somebody, you know, you think about the character that you are, but you also think about in my shoes, the musician that you are, right? If I'm not writing entrance themes, who is John Kiernan? What is he putting out? All those kinds of things. But when you write music for wrestlers and you write music for people that you really believe in too, then all of a sudden when I see you come out to You Will Believe in Me and Ring of Honor and see all these different places that you're showing up, TNA, all these places, and just seeing the entire presentation and seeing how in it you are and seeing like that you're ready to go every time. For me, I'm just like, man, it's like in a way you're a proud artist, you're a proud creator, but you're also kind of like a proud father. You're just like, yeah,
I
there
was
we
just
are.
gonna say
Like
that.
total dad mode, but like,
Feel like a great dad. I actually did a show in I don't know. I've been doing these Arcade Mania shows. I don't know if you followed
yeah,
that
yeah.
online, but we had a little show in Vegas, and I flew Tarver out to come do the song live.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it's so funny. He didn't even remember the words. He was like trying to like learn it the whole day. I was like, dude, you wrote this. Like I'm surely you can perform this. It went horribly, but it was kind of funny. And I was like, bro, next time you better be ready. And it was interesting. I don't know if you're a musician, so I don't know if you have the same mindset, but he was like, man, if I had to write that now, I'd write that completely different. I was like,
Yeah,
what are you talking about? That was perfect. It was perfect. Like because I gave him a bunch of words to hit, you know, because I don't know how to write music,
right.
and he did a fantastic job. I mean, he ad-libbed a lot of that stuff, and I think it came out well. And it's
I
cool too
remember.
because
Oh
we
God, sorry.
blended these genres, right? Because you're a fucking rock star. You play the music, and he's like a rapper, a hip hop guy, whatever. And we kind of blended all that stuff together, and we made it work. I think it's magic.
I remember that there were two themes that I did around the same time, and I always forget whose came first, whether it was yours or Fred Rosser's. But I worked with Tarver on both of those. I'm pretty sure it was you, and then we parlayed into working with Fred. But I remember that when I had heard Tarver's voice for the first time, just in general with everything else he did, I was like, okay, cool, this is awesome, I like it. He's fast, man. He's great. He's fast. He rips. He's just an awesome rapper. And then when all of a sudden he sent me the vocals back for You Will Believe in Me, I remember that there was the part later on, like the chorus where he was singing. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And understand, I don't have much context to go on in terms of, oh, this is what he can do, this is what he can't do. And he's like, bro, I never sing. But the music that you write makes me want to sing a little bit more. And so, like, the two themes that I did with him, which were that one and then No Days Off with Fred. And there were other ones that we worked on before, but in that time frame, in both of those, he sang. And I don't know if that was the first time he ever sang, but like I would hear his rapping, and I'm like, oh, this is so good. And then I'm like, oh man, he's a pretty decent singer too, you know. But you're 100% right, man. When you write something, you're in the moment, you're really feeling it, you're thinking about where you're taking it at that time, everything influences you. Even if you give me a reference 2 months, 3 months down the line from now, the way that I would take that, process it, and then give it back is completely different. The thing that I will say is anytime you go to perform, it's a different thing altogether. You always got to stay ready. You keep. It's just like, with wrestling, I'm sure you could attest to. If you're not in the ring, even if you've been doing it for years, there's ring rust, there's things like that. You always got to be keeping your body in shape to do those things. I'd love to see that performance, though, with Tarver, even if, like you said, it was like, he didn't have all the lyrics. It's still got to be really cool to have the experience, to have him come out live and bring it live.
Yeah, and I mean that was always my dream to
Yeah.
have a big match and have him do it live, in front of people and do it the whole freaking setup, coming down with me with a motorcycle and the whole, just bring the whole character, have a real WrestleMania moment at just at the
Yeah.
local boys and girls club.
So cool. And that one was such a collaborative thing, too. It was funny, too, because there are some higher vocals later on where Kevin from It Lives, It Breathes, I was just like, hey, real quick, can you hit like these real high harmonies? And that was one of the parts that took actually the longest because Tarver and I have our own studio, so we can go in, we can record. Kevin, phenomenal vocalist, but has to go somewhere to record. And again, no bones on that. It's just, some people have studios, some people have to go to studios. And I remember it was just like one line. I'm like, dude, just do it, please. And then
That's what I'm
one
saying. Like some of us have studios, it's the same with wrestling, right? Some of us
Yeah.
have rings in our backyards we can train, and other guys we have to go to the school, or you got to wait till you get to the show. But it's the same kind of concept.
Exactly, yeah. But when we heard the final, I think for me, when I heard the final, mine was in two places. When I had heard the final, like when it was like, all right, cool, it's approved, I always do one listen back after that just to make sure the mix is good. But again, very proud father moment listening back, going, all right, cool. When this goes out and when this is played in an arena and when this is played on TV, how proud can we be of it? And I felt in that moment, I was just like, man, I think we really nailed down everything we tried to do with it. And it's such a rockin' track. It's such a cool track. It's so evocative. And, all the lyrics, as somebody who, doesn't write lyrics all the time, hearing what Tarver took from you and threw all together, I was like, it was great. And then the first time that I think I had seen it, like, the video that you sent me was the first time, but the first time that I saw it out in the wild is what I call it, was with Ring of Honor when you came to it, and they had the thing in the lower thirds. And, for me getting into this industry so at an infantile stage, I'm sitting there going with Ring of Honor once we kind of settled everything. I was like, hey, if you could just throw my name in the lower thirds, that's like the coolest thing in the world. You know what I mean? And I'm like, they're Ring of Honor. I'm me. They probably don't care. And then all of a sudden, they're talking about it on TV. They're talking you up. They're dropping the name, and then they drop it in the lower thirds. I'm like, what is this? My brother showed me my first match as Brett and Sean, WrestleMania 12. That got me into it. I was a kid. What is this now, being 30, working with one of my good friends, being able to just hear and see that music on TV? That's bananas. It's not real life.
I know, and that's what it should be, right? It should be, wrestling should be like a storybook. It should, like,
Yeah.
every time you do something, even if it's insignificant, like I don't know, like we touched on this earlier. Like wrestling is such a universal language. Like I've wrestled in 66 countries now. Like I've been to places where they don't speak any English, but they understand wrestling.
Yeah.
We're storytellers. I mean, you as a musician, you just bring that to life in a different way, right? We all tell stories, but yeah, like proud father moment, like you said, even for me too. Like every single time I like watch it back, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Like we created this.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, last question I'll leave you with before I let you go today, because you are a very busy man with lots of busy things to do. What is next for PJ Black? Where do we see you? What plans do you have? What is next for PJ Black?
I don't know if you guys know this. I'm sure if you read dirt sheets, you've probably seen this. I wrestled AEW a couple of shows, and I broke my knee pretty bad. So for next steps is just trying to get back. It's probably going to take me another 3 to 6 months to get back in shape. I had to cancel. I had a couple of shows this month, but I had to cancel because the promoter was very upset. But I was like, look, people paid a lot of money to come see the shows. I don't want to give them less than what I'm capable of. I don't think that's fair. So next steps is just to get back into the best shape ever. I have some new gear. I still wanted to talk to you, but maybe we can tweak the music slightly, not a lot, but just to
Yeah.
match this character. We'll talk about that offline some other time. But just yeah, I just really want to bring all these ideas I had to life. I really, I was Justin Gabriel for 5 years only. I've been PJ Black since 1996,
Yeah.
right? And I think more people know who Justin Gabriel is. My goal is just to let people remember Dr. Black or PJ Black more than they knew who Justin Gabriel was. That's like, then I can retire happy after that.
Yeah, and I think we're in the time to do that too. Obviously, once you're rested up, once you're healed up 100%, like we echoed earlier, I think that you're in the time frame with wrestling where you can revoice yourself. You can reintroduce yourself in such a big way. It's just a matter of the time. It's just a matter of making it happen, and you'll always make it happen because you make everything happen.
Always, you adapt, you evolve. That's look at Chris Jericho. How many times
Yeah,
has he evolved and adapt? That's just what you do. Like some of us have to do that. If you're Rey Mysterio, you can just be Rey Mysterio forever. Or John Morrison, although
yep,
he has many names, Johnny Mundo, Johnny TV, whatever. He's always got that same look. People
yeah,
know who he is. That's Johnny. But like for people like me, so like some of us, we have to like just keep evolving. To me, that's fun because like get to try a bunch of different stuff and just be. And because as humans too, we change. You
yeah,
don't always stay the same. Like what's that saying? The only thing in the universe that's constant is change.
yep,
And so I kind of just go with the flow and see where life takes me. And wrestling has taken me all over the world. Like I said, 66 countries. That's pretty cool. Got to meet the most incredible people all over the world. Got to wrestle John Cena on 3 different continents. I get to work with musicians like yourself, and I've met some incredibly talented people in and out of this industry. And man, it's been such a great ride. And I'm 40, in my early 40s right now. And I was looking back the other day, and people like my family like, "Oh, you're gonna retire now? Like you're getting old, like all that stuff." And I'm like, look at the best wrestlers in the world. Look at Taker, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels. Like all these guys did their best work between 40 and 45.
yeah.
So that kind of like sparked something for me. I was like, I might look old and gray, but I can still hang. I can bring all these new stuff to life too. And I feel like my career is only starting right now. That's what it feels like. I know that sounds weird, but that's what it feels like because now I get to be me.
Yeah, and I mean that's all part of the story too. That's all part of the PJ Black story, You can build elements of that in how far you go into the legacy of PJ Black, how long you've been doing this, how long, and the different presentation. There's all different ways that you can spin it around into just an amazing package as you continue to do. And yeah, like you said, in the time period that we're in, age is just a number, man. There's so many things that you can do. I think wrestling's really opened that up to be able to say, hey, even if you are at a different stage in your career, you have these capabilities, you have these different inroads, you can do a lot more with your character to be able to amplify different things and just really make it happen. So I'm always excited to speak with you, my man, and I always appreciate you taking the time to, whether it's a phone call or a podcast interview, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate you, my friend. Everything you've done for me and throughout the years, and I feel like we built this relationship over. What's cool, like we have technology now. We can do
Yeah,
interviews over Zoom, and everyone's just a phone call away. And I'm really appreciative and of your work and your time. And
absolutely. Thank you, brother. Thank you for everything.